All right, good morning, guys. Welcome to the Flip Texas podcast here. I am super excited to be here this morning with Brant Phillips. This guy is doing big things, and he has actually been through, I believe, one or multiple recessions, been around this business for a long time, hundreds of deals, if not over 1,000 deals.
Not that many, but we're working towards it very soon.
Okay, well, yeah, super excited to be here with you this morning. We're going to talk about all things about how you got started, tips and tricks, where you're going, what you're doing today, and maybe even where the market's at the end as well.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thanks so much, Brant, for coming out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here. Yeah, someone asked me yesterday, they said, hey, man, do you know anyone who's been investing for over 15 years? I'm like, yeah, I have at this point. So I've been around for a while. Yeah.
I'm sure some scars and some band-aids from all that.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
And I'm sure when you started out, things were probably, the environment was probably a little bit different, huh?
Yeah, I kind of came into the real estate market totally clueless. I was, kind of my story real quick. People don't know me. I was in law enforcement for like 7 years, and decided to get out of law enforcement after my wife and I had our first child, and there was just politics that I wasn't going to play. So what am I going to do? I got a job I got a corporate job. Went to my job, absolutely hated it from day one, and so I remember coming home from work. My wife's all excited because I'm not a police officer anymore. I have normal work hours, and she was like, how was your first day? And I'm like, I hate it. It's like I absolutely hate it. I was like, don't worry, I'm gonna keep the job and provide obviously for our family, but I'm gonna find something else. So I plugged along at that corporate job for about 2 years, and I was miserable, but I just kind of was getting lured, kind of falling into that trap of having the job and the safety. I'm like, well, maybe I could climb the corporate ladder. And honestly, I see a lot of people do this, and I don't want to say that they sell their soul, but they know there's something else inside their heart calling them, and they don't pursue it. And they, the most dangerous place to be a lot of times is that place of like where you're comfortable. And I was falling into that trap a little bit. Not like I was making a lot of money when we were still pretty much broke, but it was like, all right, I had a company car, I had benefits, and I could climb the ladder. But I'm like, after 2 years, I'm like, no, I can't do this. Like, I would rather be, dead, broke, and busted, and go after what I want to go after rather than just like settling. So I very naively, went to the bookstore, picked up a couple. I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, of course, and Tony Robbins' book around the same time. No real estate experience at all, no knowledge. I went to a weekend seminar in January 2007, no money. My wife and I live in an apartment, but we had paid off. We had done this Dave Ramsey thing with our church, paid off our debt, paid off our student loans. We're like, woohoo, we're debt free. And then I got one of those credit card checks in the mail, and I used that to go buy a rental property. So by the end of
Dave would kill you for that.
No, yeah, I know. Oh yeah. And so by the end of January, I had my first rental property. And then long story short, I bought 10 rentals my first year in 2007, still working my job, doing it on the side. And that's kind of how I got started. So that was a different mark. I think it was a different market. I'm like, yes, I really didn't have any idea about where we were at in the market or what even a market cycle was. I learned about passive income, and I could potentially quit my job and live off passive income. That sounded like
sounds nice.
Swell idea to me. So I had, some coaching and mentoring. I said, I'm just going to do whatever these guys tell me. What do I have to lose? So that's what I did. He told me about rental properties. So that's what I did. And then 2008 came. Yeah. So, yeah.
That sounds quick. I'm sure that was, it sounds like it was definitely a different time where, I guess maybe the lending was maybe a little bit different, and probably the I guess a lot of things probably different.
Yeah, so it's kind of the way the world was, So I bought every single house I bought that year in 2010, I bought with hard money. And the way I did it, the first one I mentioned, I put $7,000 down, and I bought it in January. We rehabbed it in February. By like March 1st, I had a tenant in it, okay, before my first hard money payment was due. And I was like, because I was really hard on my contractors. I'm like, I need this because may not be able to make this payment if we're not done. And I got my tenant in there, and immediately started to refinance the property, and refinance it like super quick, right? And reminder, I had no money in the bank, but I was able to refinance with 30-year Fannie Mae quality financing. And so I went and so then I basically negotiated with my hard money lender to continue to give me 100% financing. He had a $5,000 cashier's check. He kept in his office in case I defaulted, but I never did. And I was able to buy these 10 houses all on hard money and refinance every single one with Fannie Mae financing, even though I had no money. So in 2008 came, and 2000, when the crash really came, and I began to learn more about real estate, and a lot of my buddies or people I met who were no longer in real estate, I'm like, yeah, I get it. They should not have been lending money to me. Statistically, like I was an anomaly. Like I should have went out of business. And so most people did. And yeah, it was a crazy world in hindsight. Back then that was just the way it was. So, I didn't realize anything. And then late 2008, 2009 came, and I was like, all right, here we are.
I love it. So do you think that those 10 rental properties were like a firm foundation, or what did you do to not go out of business when you saw, it sounds like you saw your friends and your family or friends, a lot of time I think of these people, a lot of people in real estate with me as family were, really close a lot of times. What do you think you did that was differently, like to not go out of business than everyone else was?
So I always go back to this. So the number one thing, and it sounds so cheesy, and I don't want to go too in depth on my Tony Robbins man crush.
Give us all the motivation.
It's mindset, right? Like a mindset. And so literally when I read his book, and actually I had like some CDs, and I was like driving to work and back, I started listening. I was like, who in the heck is this guy? What is he saying? And I like this dude's a freaking nut job, And I started listening to him more. I'm like, what do I have to lose? I have nothing to lose. I'm the one who's miserable, broke, all this kind of stuff, with like a bleak future of climbing up this corporate ladder that I have no desire to even be on this ladder in the first place. So what I did was I read that book and, read Kiyosaki and some other stuff. And I just said, why not me, right? Like, why can't I do it? And the only thing that's going to prevent me is a limiting mindset and just not putting in the work. So that, I remember like it was yesterday. So me and my wife are in this tiny apartment. Once again, no money, just finished Dave Ramsey thing. And I told myself, I'm going to buy 10 rentals this year. I just came up with, I'm going to do it. So I went to Mindset, and I went to the Walgreens or CVS, whatever. I bought a white poster board and I stuck it on the wall, and I drew these 10 squares on it. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to buy 10 rental properties this year. And I'm like, every time I buy one, I'm going to fill in, with the and I put a little thing for cash flow, equity, right?
Okay.
And she's like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, we don't have any money. You don't know anything about real estate or business. How are you going to do it? I was working long hours too with my job. And I told her, I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to do it. And I had like this piece, like, no matter what, I was going to accomplish it. And that was I had so much clarity and discernment, like, I'm going to make this happen no matter what, even if it kills me. And it really came down to that. So I executed that plan December of that year. Like, I got to fill in the 10th box, and I was like, I knew, like, I changed, like, I became like a new man after that. I'm like, I saw the power, right, of having commitment and a vision, right, and goal setting and executing, and just everything that every bump and bruise I had was a learning lesson. So that was the main thing for me. I was taught back then in 2007, it was like $150 positive cash flow was a good deal. And
if it's 100% financed,
so I was like, well, it is what it is. But then, year 2, year 3, you have a vacancy or an AC goes out and things like that. And it's
gotta
like,
dip in your
I'm
pocket.
like, $200 or $300 a month is like breaking even. In the long-term side of things, but it was wealth creation, right? And it didn't matter because my whole mindset had shifted, and then 2008 and 9 came in, better deals started coming. But really, how I stayed afloat was mindset, because that was number one. Because no matter what problem or challenge came my way, I'm like, I'm gonna figure it out. And number 2 was active income. Okay. So what a lot of investors I've seen make the mistake is there's like these, I'd say there's like these 3 buckets of real estate. You've got like your active income bucket, you've got, some passive income, and then as those pour over, they can fill up your wealth creation bucket. And a lot of people jump in, and this is what I did, I tried to jump in straight to the B bucket, passive income. That's okay as long as you have some active income. And I had my job, right? My wife is a hairstylist, so I had income to pay my bills. I wasn't living on, hey, I've got these 10, 20 rental properties, and a lot of people make that mistake. So number 1, I would tell people, don't quit your day job too soon, right? Or what I did was find a way to make, active income in real estate while filling up your B bucket and spilling over to your wealth creation bucket. So I had active income. When I quit my job, I was nervous. I had 25 rentals, but some months you're cash flowing, some months you're not. And so what I did is I created a construction company with a partner. It's called Rent Ready Contractors, and we specialize just in rental property rehabs. And that took off like a rocket. So it became my job, but I loved it because I was like doing what I wanted to do. I quit my job and I was still able to invest at the same time. So what helped me was when there were thin months on my rentals, it didn't matter because that was really ultimately spilling over to my wealth creation bucket. I wasn't
counting on solely that.
Yeah, and they were self-supporting, right? And so I did take some money out of my rentals in the beginning. I remember I took a vacation because I'm like, my mentors told me this is passive income. And, I'd had a little bit, like 10 grand or whatever in the bank, and we, took a splurge, like a 3,000 trip to Cancun. And then like we get back the next month, they had like 2 air conditioners go out or something, I'm like, oh God, what? Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? That's just going to be wealth creation, and I'm just going to leave that money alone. Let me figure out how to create the lifestyle I want from this active bucket, and eventually passive income will get to where it can do that too. Does that make sense?
It does. So you're thinking of it, and I think that's a good explanation, in buckets, and about almost when you say active, you're talking about flipping houses, being a real estate agent,
wholesaling.
Wholesaling.
Those are all active income.
Okay.
Right? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you enjoy it, love it, you're passionate about it. That's great. Spend a lot of time here, and I still do, but make sure that you're
create. It sounds like almost creating passive income of some sorts, whether it's rentals or whatever. And then it sounds like you're almost ideally, forgetting about these rentals.
They overflow.
And not kind of counting on them or touching them all the time.
Yep.
Like, hey, let me, it's cash flowing. Say my mobile home park is cash flowing $3,000 or $5,000 a month. You're not taking out that entire amount every single month.
No, absolutely. That's what it is. Each bucket. So if you're start making substantial active income, now you need to invest that money to create passive income. Passive income can potentially replace your active income if you want. I don't think I will always be active doing something, like we're doing some land development deals and stuff like that. It's active, but I love it, and we're making like a lot of money, so that's fine.
Keeps your mind busy.
Yeah, it's just like you love it. And then so that bucket can overflow to create more passive income. Passive income, just with concept of time and appreciation, right? Reducing your mortgage debt is going your wealth bucket is going to naturally just grow and grow and grow.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
and that's what it is. Like we're my wife and I are buying a new home, like our personal home, like our dream home, and I'm dealing with the big bank, and they're like, oh, I've got a couple of smaller entities, and they're like, well, you've got a couple of entities that are taking losses. So I'm like, yeah, I do. That's one of the benefits. I've got like 12 different entities, and they're like, well, you've got all this money, but it's in your businesses. I'm like, most of them are single member. I mean, they're my LLCs, and that's my money. And they're like, well, you're not taking a salary. I'm like, I know, but all that money's there. It's mine. It's because I don't touch it. But they have a hard time. It took a while to explain to them, like, I don't know. I'm like, I only have real estate debt that brings money in, and I don't touch most of the money. What's the deal here? Yeah. Anyways,
that's incredible. Congratulations. So this is what area is this, and and tell me about y'all's dream house. Yeah.
So it's it's in Texas. I don't want to be too specific,
okay.
But I'll invite you over. We're gonna have like a big bash.
That would be incredible, Brant.
Yeah.
Are we still gonna be driving distance?
Oh yeah. Okay, it's
perfect.
here. We talked about moving out to the country and all that kind of stuff, and when COVID hit, I would like that. And my wife was like, yes, she wanted to move out to the country, and started looking at homes, started talking about all the benefits of being off the grid and water well and all this kind of stuff. And then we went to look at the first house. She's like, it's far. And I'm like, no, life's going to change. There's not a Starbucks or a Whole Foods nearby. So we decided to stay close enough proximity to the city, but we're on water well and septic and generator and all that kind of stuff. But we're looking for land, on a little further away.
Okay, so like a middle ground, because I like the same thing too, where I love the idea of living farther out. I inside the loop is Houston. It's just getting very dangerous. But I think I like the concept a little more than like the realization.
Yeah, the real life is totally different.
Wow, now I'm really kind of far away from stuff. So maybe the middle ground is is the best.
Yeah, we have on a lake, surrounded by forest, on both sides, but we're in a kind of a neighborhood. We're in a neighborhood, but we are end of a lot surrounded by forest, lake, and not too far from the Beltway, so I can get in and do business.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we're excited.
Okay, I love it. That's awesome. Tell me about where what you're doing with the market right now, and like how does this is a selfish question here for me, but how do you think? I mean, I see people that are, they're waiting on. They're saying, no, I'm not buying any deals. I'm waiting the market to crash, and then the other side is, hey, I don't think the market is gonna take a big dip. I'm just gonna keep going with what I'm doing. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of your thoughts and what you're kind of up to in this market?
Yeah, people ask me about what's the market going to do, and I typically defer on that question and just say I'm not that smart. I have no clue. Don't count on me to do market predictions, and I don't do a ton of research on what the market's going to do and all this kind of stuff. I look at it like from a macro level, but what I typically tell people is this, and this is when I started learning, went through a cycle correction, things like that, and I've done all types of investing. And what I tell people is this, is number one, market's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go sideways. So make sure that you have a business plan, an investing plan that can sustain itself in any of those markets, okay? Because I made the mistake of building and doing some higher end investing. This was like 500,000 to 800,000.
I remember we were talking about the heights, right?
Yeah, when oil and gas tanked. And I, number one, didn't enjoy developing homes like that. You know, you have guys like Curtis Warden, and like that's their zone of genius. Mm-hmm. I hated it. I mean, Curtis and I partnered on some homes, and I just wanted to paint everything beige and do my rent ready style, and no desire at all for anything custom. And then, you know, I'm developing these homes and I couldn't sell them. It was very painful for me financially, and I got through it, and I, you know, made my lenders right and all that kind of stuff, and never missed a payment, but it was brutally painful. And so what I learned from that, and it ties into this question, is I don't know if they can see this table or not, the full table, but mm-hmm. there's two tables put together, right? And there's a line right here, right in the middle where these tables connect.
Okay.
So let's look at this line. This line is basically median price housing. Okay. So up above this line, north of this line, right, like you're getting into middle upper class luxury homes, that kind of stuff. I just don't play in this market, no matter what. I don't play in this market. Median price housing and below is what I learned. This is where I started, and this is what I've come back to, where all of my investing is done at median price housing or below. Okay. So no matter what market that we're in, I feel safe here that there's opportunities to flip, there's opportunities for rentals, there's opportunities for owner finance, right? I don't do much wholesaling, but we can do that with certain leads that come in. So other than a short period of my career, have chose to focus in this zone because I just feel like, hey, if the market comes up, we're going to be gaining some buyers. If it goes down, you know, if it goes up, we may lose some buyers to the market. But this is where 70% of the real estate market is at. So you have the most inventory, you have the most buyers, you have the most exit strategies, you have the most income strategies. So I always focus on this market. So I don't really concern myself too much on what's going to happen with the market in terms of interest rates. Financing's hard. That's good for us. You know, we'll do more on our financing, et cetera, et cetera. I will tell you that there's one thing that does concern me, though. Not today, not tomorrow, and I suspect it won't affect Texas too much anytime soon. But right now you've got a lot of building going on. It's in debate on, you know, what is the housing shortage? Like I've seen it's like we're short 7 million doors or whatever homes. And other people are like, no, it's like 1 million.
And there's a big variance. And then other people are like, no, we're not short on houses.
Yes. and so regardless, there's a lot of new construction, right? Homes, apartments. And our population is declining.
That's a good point.
That scares me because it may not be tomorrow, but in 5-10 years.
Not everyone has as big of a beautiful family as yourself, right?
Yeah, the younger generation, your generation younger, they're not
married later, less kids, right?
Yeah, so that actually is like a very, very slow moving train, but it's coming. If inventory is going to continue to decrease, supply, demand is going to decrease just by sheer lack of numbers. So that's something that's, you know, has me thinking about my 5 to 10 year plan. Mm-hmm. So
do you think that when we talk about less people, and say for instance people like I'm a millennial, mm-hmm. and when we talk about millennials, do you think about the word like renter nation really kind of comes into play with these people that aren't having as big of families? They don't need it, like maybe just renting or mm-hmm. or just not as much housing needs? Or
well, if there's more inventory than there are people that need that inventory, that's that's a problem.
Okay.
The renter nation is definitely here, like it's here, right? And part of it is by design. Let's just be quite honest, and part of it's by need. Like certain portion of the renter market are never going to be, their credit worthiness, their income, or maybe even their desire to own a home. But there's a large percentage of renters who desire to be homeowners and they not able to for whatever reason. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm not sure I'm answering.
No,
I'm not sure.
No, you are. I'm just really curious.
Yeah.
How your brain works
Yeah.
about it. That's interesting. And so
the
when
rental development side, I'm not a fan of.
You're not okay.
No, I would not invest in them, and I don't like them for communities. And I'm just, I really don't like rental property, honestly. Like, it's helped me create wealth, but my goal is like to help everyone achieve American dream, right? Home ownership, and so I like to do that through owner financing. I like to do that with mobile homes, right? Give them that opportunity. But yeah, I'm not a big rental guy.
So when you say not a big rental guy, I know you own these mobile home parks.
Mm-hmm.
So when you own these mobile home parks, tell me a little bit about mobile home parks. Why mobile home parks? If people are wanting to get in mobile home parks, what advice do you have for them? Or partnering up on mobile home parks.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like the way you're talking, it sounds like you probably don't even want to own if I'm guessing from your mindset here, you probably don't even want to own the mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
You probably sell or finance these mobile homes, and you probably just own the land.
Yep, that's it, 100%. So when I started in real estate with just buying rentals, right? I had close to 50 rentals, and had already hired a full-time property manager, a girl who's working out of the office, and they still were very stressful to me and to her. And I want this lifestyle business, but it was
just calls.
Just even she was taking all the calls, but the big decisions I had to make, I was absolutely cutting all the checks, and just it wasn't that much fun. But understood this is part of the game to create wealth and things like that. So kept a lot of my portfolio. But over the years, properties became vacant or make ready. So when I learned owner financing, I began owner financing homes. And for me, I'm like, oh, this is so much better. This is so much better. It's more consistent. It's more predictable. My expenses have gone way down. Enjoyment of life and business way up, right? And more scalable too. So I love owner finance. And so I've been doing that ever since I learned that 10 years ago. So a few years ago with mobile home parks, the reason, kind of what led me down that trail, is I noticed, I started noticing the market was starting to change in 2014 when the hedge funds were coming. We started working with the hedge fund in 2012. I was like, things are going to change. When then wholesalers deals started to become less plentiful or less profitable, we had to start doing our own marketing, which I never did for 7 years. So I knew things were changing. And about 4 years ago, I really things are really changing. I need to, shift, whatever you want to call it, start thinking outside the box, because single family homes in Houston is not going to continue to be my bread and butter unless I figure something out. So I started researching. I was very fortunate, had a very good friend who's also a business partner who had been investing in mobile homes and mobile home parks, and I didn't pay attention to him. I just made redneck jokes, to be honest with you. And so one day I was like, dude, tell me, what are you doing? Tell me about some of your deals. And he broke down a couple of them, and mainly mobile homes on land. And I was like, made a lot of sense. So, and then I did more research, and learned about Warren Buffett owning, Clayton Homes, 21st Century Mortgage. So I'm like, Warren likes the space. And then I learned about Sam Zell. Sam Zell's like the Michael Jordan of real estate. And he, I don't want to spend too much time, but he's the greatest real estate investor of all time that very few people have heard about. Anyways,
I haven't.
His name is Sam Zell. And so Sam's story is, you know, he's invested big time in whatever asset class you're talking about. Multifamily, shopping centers, strip centers, boat, RV storage, development, everything. And he's done it big time. And so in the mid 1980s, his company was buying some other company. It was like a $60 million transaction or $60 million transaction, something like that. They're just acquiring a business. I don't think it was a real estate business, but that business happened to own a mobile home park. So he sent one of his guys out. He said, go check this thing out, figure out what we need to do to get rid of it. So his guy comes back and he's like, Sam, you're not going to believe this. He's like, it's worse than we thought. And he's like, no, it's an ATM machine. Things printing cash. I've never seen anything like it. So long story short, they did not sell it. They kept it, and they began acquiring more. To fast forward to today, they have close to like 180,000 mobile home lots. Okay. And you look at Sam's investment career, his multifamily, his commercial, whatever, storage, he sold off like half or more than half of his portfolio, his other holdings.
Mm-hmm.
He's never sold a mobile home park. And when I read that,
there must be something said about
that. I read that and learned that. I was like, I just have to do this. I have to try this. And so that's what I did. So that was like when I read that, I was like, what am I doing?
Did you do the same thing as he did once you got your first one? You were like, I'm keeping this thing. These are the best. I'm sure there's always bumps along the road.
Yeah, I haven't sold any yet. I will at some point in time. You know, I don't know if there'll be a forever thing. If someone offers a stupid price or whatever, I would. But yeah, they've been really good. There's work involved, obviously. There's been a lot of work involved. They're not easy. They're not for everyone. They're not for everyone. I would say it is. Well, each mobile home park's different. You know, like some are very, you're kind of your Class A mobile home parks. And if they're big enough, you've got a full-time manager, you've got a lot of that infrastructure, they could be much easier. Some of the smaller parks, smaller to mid-size, which I've done value adds where we're doing a lot of turnaround. There's a lot of work involved there. It's very much worth it, especially when you get them stabilized. But yeah, they've been really good. We're working on our first cash out refinance now. So I'm super excited about that. And I'm also like, let's get this done because things are changing in the financing world.
Let's get some of this tax-free
That's why I was
money,
doing that phone call right before here. So yeah, for sure.
When I really appreciated I want to relay maybe some of this to the audience as well. I called you. I don't know if you remember this. I called you maybe, I don't know if it was a year ago or why I think it was so long. Maybe it was 6 months ago with the mobile home park that I had under contract here. I think it was in Galveston County, and it was like 30 something. Mm-hmm. I had it set up on a really, really nice owner finance terms, and the lady's kids realized how nice terms I had it set up on. And when we ask all our sellers, hey, what do your kids, this is all, you always want to ask this whenever you're dealing with elderly people. Yeah. First off, what is your husband or spouse, and then what do your kids want to do? Do they want you to sell it as well? And she's like, oh yeah, no, I already talked. I'm talking with my kids. We talked with one of her kids on speakerphone. They were both there, but then I think she had one kid. She had one kid that lived in New York, and and this kid from New York wasn't having it. And when they found out, they went bananas, and so that one did not close. But you gave me some incredible words of advice. Can you give us three tips when you're buying to watch out for when you're buying your first mobile home park or when you're doing due diligence on your first mobile home park? There were a couple things that you told me that were very game changing and they really changed the park a lot. And if you didn't really understand this, I could see someone buying a park and then being like, them maybe they're like you 10 years ago where they buy, or however long ago that was, when you buy a property and maybe you don't have a ton of cash, maybe you don't have $200,000 cash in the bank. Maybe in this LLC you don't have $100,000 cash in the bank. What do people need to watch out for with doing due diligence in their first mobile home park, or maybe 3 things?
Yeah. So you always have to buy it right. Some people are sending me deals to look at, and they just think because it's a mobile home park and they've heard me or other people talk about how great they are, that they can just buy it and it's magically going to be great. That's not the case. So you have to buy it right. And so what does buying it right look like? So number one, it's based, so the way that we do our offers is based on the financials of the park today, right? So many deals I see are like pro forma. It's like, well, if you fill up these 15 lots, you bring in houses and fill up these lots, then it's going to be, that's a lot of work. That is the hard part of the business, right? So you're buying, like, I've got, so many deals, like, let's say if it's a 25 lot park, but there's only 10 lots that are there and performing, your offer is based on those 10 lots, right? And then I get this a lot too. It's like, there's 3 more acres where you can build out and develop. I have no desire to build out and develop a mobile home park. I can go find land anywhere. Development is a ton of work, right? We don't want to do that. In cities, a lot of cities aren't allowing these parks to expand and increase their size. It's other things you have to look for. So number one is that it's like buying it based on what the financials are today. We're trying to buy north of a 10 cap, right? 10, 12, 15, 18 caps. And people like, those don't exist. They are. You got to work a little bit harder. You got to be a little bit more picky and choosy. But those deals are out there. You got to deal with the mom and pops. So that's number one.
Okay, buying it right.
Yeah, buying it right based on the financials today, not tomorrow. Okay. And then number two is your utilities. You have to understand and know what you're getting into with your utilities. Okay. So my wife said one day, after I've been working on parks for a while, I got a phone call. She was like, every time I hear you talk about a mobile home park, you're talking about sewer, septic, water. I'm
the dirty S word.
That's the business. You have to know those things. So when it comes to, let's just talk about water for a moment. You want city water, right? You want a public water service. I was told by my mentor to not buy any parks on a water well. What did I do? What does he know? Because I'm like, it's too good of a deal. And so I bought my first one that's on a water well. And honestly, my mentor owns them on water wells too, but he's like, you have to be very, very careful, know what you're getting into. Most investors don't. So that's why he kind of teaches that way. I get it. But I bought one on a water well, and it turned into a nightmare. It turned into a headache. It turned into 50. Well, it's a long story. I probably can't even go into it. But we got reported to the state, and it wasn't registered. There was nothing wrong with our water. We had just a bad tenant. And she reported us. They came out, and they're like, oh, your water's great. Your well looks wonderful too, but your well's not registered with the state. And we're like, didn't know anything about that. And $50,000 later, engineers, all this testing, having to buy a half acre from my neighbor's property that he's like gouging me on because we need like this easement around our well. It's just been horrible, but thankfully we have good water, we have good well, stuff like that. But it's expensive, and now we've got all these requirements. We have to, like, he sent me like 40 something items that we had to do to satisfy the state.
Some regulations.
Yeah, so it's an absolute headache. The thing is, you have free water, but it's not really free. So anyway, so you have to understand your water situation. You also, if it's city water is most ideal, that's what we're looking for. But we had another property that we were buying, and it had city water, but those were the original pipes. And so it was kind of a water included in the rent. And I'm like, your water bill is close to $3,000 on 15 lots. Why is that? Well, it's because the underground water was the lines were leaking, okay, and tenants just use the heck out of it when they're not paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we thankfully learned that going in up front, and this is a 24 lot park that was 50% occupied. They wanted $200-something thousand for it. We negotiated this and this down, got them to basically 200. But when we really found out about the plumbing lines, that was going to be $100,000 expense. We bought the park for $100,000 because we brought all this pain. Like, what are you going to do? You've got a $3,000 water bill that you're not getting paid on.
That
are
sounds
you gonna
like
do
a killer
this?
deal, but
it's a killer deal.
But the cost, I don't. Yeah, that sounds.
It's a killer.
That sounds stupid, but
it's a killer deal.
I mean, you don't want to go. You get some incredible leverage. They don't want to go in there and fix these.
We negotiated this deal for over a year. Okay. And so thankfully we found that out front, so we could have bought it for 200 and then spent another 100, and we've had other expenses too we've put into it. But long story short, we knew that up front. We dealt with it, and then we replaced it, the water lines, and sub-metered it, so we had eliminated a $2,000-something expense to like zero. So it's awesome. So you got to know your utilities. You have to know if you've got city sewer versus septic, right? So city sewer obviously is most ideal. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have to replace some lines under the ground. Septic, try to avoid if you can, but there's just a lot of, there's a steep learning curve for a lot of investors. Even for me, I didn't really know anything about septic and dealing with water wells and all this kind of stuff. So you need to learn about the utilities. Just 100%. Like you gotta know the utilities, and then so we're talking about just analyzing deal. Is that what you're saying?
Or 3 tips for your first one.
Yeah. So then the next thing is like, let's talk about geography. Geography is definitely the next important thing. So there's two pieces of geography that you need to look at. Number one, the actual location of the park in proximity to employment, right, and residents.
Okay.
So, you start looking at parks, and people send them to me, and they're like, man, there's a 50-lot park, but it's literally like in the Mojave Desert. Like it's vacant. And they're like, yeah, but just imagine. I'm like, yeah,
just imagine.
Yeah. And some of the oil and gas towns, like the boom and bust towns, I'm going to stay away from those. I want to be like close proximity to gainful employment, colleges if you can, hospitals if you can, and just commerce, right? So I'm okay with buying in small cities as long as I'm in very, 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 very close proximity to that small city. But you got to look at things, what's the median price point of homes there? Because if you're in a market, and this may be outside of Texas, because one of my parks is outside of Texas, if your housing prices are $75,000, they can buy a single family home for $75,000, then you don't have an irresistible offer with your mobile home, your mobile home in a mobile home park. But if you're in a market where in Houston,
it's 200,000 plus,
400,000, and now you can get them in a mobile home for $50,000 plus $400 lot rent. That makes sense. So you got to make sure you're good, with your geography, economically, like the economics of that area support the park. Number one is most critical, and number two is like the geography from that park to your house. Do you want to invest in something that is within 30 minutes to an hour away, or in my case, in a whole another state where I have to get on a plane? And so there's pros and cons to both. I kind of like the parks being very, very, very far away, because I'm not just going to go hop in my truck and go there. We've set up virtual management and figure out ways to get things done, and allows me to look at deals in other markets. But that's not for everybody, right? So you got to figure out if you're open to buying parks in other markets. There's definitely a learning curve there, building a team of contractors, managers, all that kind of stuff. But if you're inclined to figure those problems out, then you can buy parks anywhere.
That's
You know?
very, very interesting that you said you almost like that better
I do.
because you're not. So I'm assuming that you're not a, 10 out of 10 control freak, where you.
I'm close, man. I'm a small business owner, and that's one of the models of our company is small but mighty, But I usually sometimes twice a week, I'm in my truck. I go out and look at properties and stuff around here, and check on things. So it is definitely a plus where I'm like, I'm not going to the parks.
What state is this, Brant?
It's in Illinois.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So do you? I guess in this case, it only.
Normally, I would have.
It only makes sense probably because that park's big enough. Like, because some people I see that they're like trying to go into all these other markets too fast, too soon. I feel like so you really got. It seems like you only ventured out later in your career. What are your thoughts on that? Or like for say someone who's just maybe someone in their first like year to couple years in the business, do you advise like being that far away, or maybe it just depends on your team?
My answer to every real estate question is always it depends, right?
Yeah.
It depends on their background. Someone has maybe been a manager or ran other companies and worked in other, then maybe for them, right? It just depends. Like you've got some people who have no business experience, no real estate experience, probably not, right? So it just depends. And like that particular deal, it was the deal I was telling you about where we replaced all the underground water lines, where we negotiated that thing for over a year, me and my acquisitions guy, and conversation started as like, it's too much, not too interested, but we're gonna make an offer. And then they would ghost for a while and they would come back. They seller financed it originally to an investor who didn't do anything, and so that was pain. And then we started doing due diligence and negotiating it down, and it just kept coming back to us. And so I got on the calls a few times too, because this was new to my acquisitions agent. And so I would get in he established rapport, I would come in. I told these guys so many times, like, I don't think we're your buyer. Like, if I were you,
That's a powerful statement.
I would say, I think you could get your price if you're a little bit more patient. And I push the patient button because they don't want to be patient.
Okay.
But I'm like, if you can just be patient.
You could probably wait another couple years and get that price.
Yeah, it's true. Like, and it may have been months, but I was like, if you could just be patient, or maybe just spend the $100,000 and fix the plumbing. They don't want to hear that, And so, long story short, I said, I don't think you're a buyer. Well, what is your offer? And so I just kept gathering data. We sent out local contractors. I'm like, just got to the point where I'm like, you don't want to hear this and don't get mad at me, but if you sell for $100,000, we'll buy it. I'm thinking they're, maybe gonna curse me out or whatever. And they said, how soon can you close?
That's a closing question right there.
And we did it, right? And it was scary. I was like, okay, this is kind of overwhelming. But now I went there 3 times the first year and built our team and set it up where I had my assistant like go on Craigslist, Facebook, and had like a ton of different contractors meet me. And like I went to like the local Sherwin-Williams and got contractor cards and Home Depot and met like a lot of contractors. And these were short trips. They were like 2 or 3 day trips. I'm like very boom, 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 boom. And I got a couple of really, really, really good contractors. And so I've got one who's like he demoed the houses and he mows the grass and he levels the yard or puts out shovels it whenever the snow comes.
Okay.
He's like, hey, you need me to plow, do a quick plow?
I'm sorry, I wouldn't even thought about that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. And another like GC, and this GC is like actually brought me another deal up there. He's like, I think get it for $30,000. It's a park. No. And so I haven't been there since, it's been like 6 or 7 months. And now my contractor, because I went like in October, it's freezing. And the plumbing work was getting started then. And so both my contractors, man, when you coming down, when you hang out, have a beer and just check out the park. And my guys, a couple weeks, when are you coming down, man? And because I told them I was going to come down this time, and now I'm like, I may never go again, to be honest with you, you know. I don't really need to. So, yeah, you can definitely do it. It's just a little bit more challenging in the beginning.
That sounds like an incredible feeling, you know, not having to go into your business unless you want to.
Yeah.
Tell me about...
But you're still providing the value. Like, we have virtual management set up.
Okay.
So if there's an issue, we resolve it, we take care of it. The city mayor, it's a smaller city outside of Chicago, he was so fed up with the other people and it looking like a, you know, slumlord typical mobile home park. We painted the fences, new mailboxes, we got out the bad homes, renovated a couple of homes, have people in those now. So it's a whole different park. He's happy, residents are happy. We only lost, I think, one resident, which we wanted him to go. So we're still providing the value and the services, but there's like, what more am I going to do by getting on a plane, driving there, and walking around, like, you know, that I can't get someone for $30 off Craigslist to go do a walkthrough video, or my contractor, you know. So it is a good feeling.
That's an interesting mindset to out of state investing. How does with what you're doing moving forward in this current market in 2022, moving forward, how does EXP and your agent side of the business, how does that work in tandem with your investing side, and also too, like with what it looks like, say, the next 10 years in real estate, with like what makes you the, you know, when you determine what you're doing, do you look at what do you get the most fulfillment with, and is that something is that why you're kind of doing the EXP and the agent side?
Oh, well, yeah. So, EXP, I was on a call right before I came in with someone who's getting their license, and so the way they said, oh, I heard you speak about EXP, I want to get my license, I want to come join under you. So a lot of times, like those who don't know, EXP Realty is a cloud-based real estate brokerage. I got licensed in 2009, right before I quit my job, just in case. And my business took off when I quit my job, and that's a whole nother lesson where people they hold on to their job because they're nervous. But it's an amazing thing when you actually have full time and attention to focus on something. It's what do you focus on expands. So it's hard to fully focus when you're working a full-time job. So I quit my job, went into real estate full-time, business took off. So I had a friend of mine who was an agent, and he did most of my listings. Even though I was licensed, I just gave him all my listings. He did like a flat fee thing with me. I hung my license at a flat fee brokerage, barely used it. 2015, something like that, I hired a full-time agent to help me come into the office. It was my sister-in-law. She had her license. So she started doing all my listings in-house and helping me with some other things. So I was sitting in a continuing education class to keep my license active in 2017. And I'm like, why am I here? You know, I got into real estate like most people, create passive income, create wealth, lifestyle, right? Those 3 boxes, and impact and legacy and stuff like that. And I'm like, this does none of those things for me, right? So I'm like,
the actual license.
Yeah, the actual being a licensed.
And that's why I dropped mine a little while back.
Yeah, that's what I did. So that was kind of the perspective I took, and I'm like, what am I doing here? And so I left class and deactivated my license. Well, then next year I met Connor, and I saw the business model. And when I saw the business model, it checked the wealth creation box with stock. It checked the passive income bucket with what we have the ability to do at EXP with building growing team of agents. And so that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to activate my license. And I went and activated my license, and that's been almost 4 years. So that's why I do EXP, because it's we could say agent-owned brokerage. I've earned a substantial amount of stock, that I'm very proud of. in a short period of time, and substantial, 5-figure passive income monthly. That's really, really nice. Like
Really?
Yes, it's legit. It's not peanuts. Like, it's steak. It's nice. So it's been an amazing opportunity. We get medical benefits. I've got 5 kids. I've been paying Blue Cross Blue Shield, I don't know how much money. So there's a lot of other benefits too.
Okay, that strikes me as interesting. So you're using the medical benefits of that for your beautiful family?
Yeah, that wasn't even, so EXP is one of the things that I say, it's actually one of those rare things that's even better than I thought it was going to be. Because medical came out after. I was paying $1,500 a month to Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? For many, after we adopted our 5th child, like my medical bill was high. It was even, when I quit my job, it was high. This is in 2009. It was me and my wife and 2 kids.
Okay.
I was paying $600 or $700 a month.
Yeah, I paid $500 for I pay $500 right now for a really crappy policy for myself.
Yeah, and then we had child 3, then 4, then 5. We're paying $1,500 a month, and there's still a high deductible and all this kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, my insurance bill went down to $653 a month, and I was like, it's just another benefit. It was like just icing on the cake, but 100%. Passive income was my first goal, and because you asked about like enjoyment and things like that. A few years ago, I got to a point where I was just working too much. I was speaking, doing a lot of coaching. I had a networking event, flipping houses, everything we're doing. And I bought my first park, and, I just like, man, I'm kind of burned out. I don't want to be burned out. So, I'm always like, you got to cut out something. And I'm so type A, I'm high energy. I'm a workaholic, I have time every day for my wife and my kids and exercise and God. But other than that, like, I'm working, and it's just like, I enjoy it, I love it. But I made a spreadsheet of everything I was doing. Everything in real estate, flipping, renting, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And I had EXP in there. And when I looked at, risk, reward, wealth, I made all the, I scored everything. Like, EXP was like at the top.
Really?
Yeah, it was surprising to me too. It was surprising to me. So that was like year 1. So, man, EXP is a bolt-on business, right? It's not, for some people like Connor, it's replaced everything. For me, like, it would never do that. Income-wise, I think it will. Like, it have that ability to, but I'll still do other things, right? And then, and it helps the legacy thing too, because most of my agents who are on my team, I coach, help, support, mentor. They're doing deals. Some of them are sending me deals. My lending, I'm loaning primarily to agents on my team, because they're flipping and doing stuff. So, and they're doing short-term rentals. So it's been great, man. So when are you signing up?
So it sounds like it's almost like a little networking group for you. That's like,
yeah. I have a lot of deal flow coming from my agents, and then, like I said, I am a private lender, so my lending is, you got to be in the club. I'm not like jet lending. I'm not lending to everybody like a business, but it's like my trusted group who I know, like, and trust these people. I loan to them.
I love it. Well, incredible. Thank you so much, Brant, for giving us. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this for some more notes and nuggets. Any last words of wisdom for the audience, and then also you'll have to let us know where is the best place to reach Brant Phillips about the best ways to work with you.
BrantPhillips.com, the easiest thing. Man, I don't know. Just go after your dreams, man. Like that. That's it. We're all coming from different backgrounds, different, upbringing, financial places in life. But you got to start somewhere. Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, or today. Yeah. So just get going, man. I had a meeting this morning with the guy, and he was kicking himself because he had $50,000 in the bank in 2006, and he never invested in real estate. It's like, man, I'm kicking myself. I should have started back then. I'm like, it's been 16 years, man. You can start today. You know, just start from wherever you're at, learn, and going back to my poster board story, get super clear on some of your goals, take massive action, learn, assess what's working, what's not working, and wash, rinse, and repeat, and keep going to the next level, whatever that level is, wherever you're at, just keep going.
Cool. I love it. I really, I'm amazed with your stick it on, with your tin house thing where you stick it on the wall and track. I think tracking is a really big thing it's underrated, especially just because if you don't track where you started, you don't feel like you have to feel like you're actually making progress with yourself and not just like comparing it to where, like, I have some friends where they're multimillionaires and they're not 40, and it's great to it's changed my mindset, right? But when you're just getting started, you can't be like, hey, I have 2 or 3 rental properties, but you don't have, you want to still feel like you're making progress compared to yourself. So that's incredible.
Yeah, comparing the gap, right, versus, hey, and that comparing can be a bit of a drift and not useful to a certain extent. I catch myself doing it at certain times, but yeah, it is good to give yourself a pat on the back, measuring the gap, like, hey, I measured from here to here, I've made this jump, and it can boost your confidence, keep you going.
Cool. Well, also with Flip Texas, we have a big event coming up on the 17th of next month. We are going to be in the Heights at Eureka Heights. It's going to be a great event. We are back. We're going to have an action-packed lineup. We're going to have Robert Orfino from Mr. Texas Real Estate. We're going to have James Toller out, speaking mindset. We're going to have Boris Sanchez here, who's made millions off apartments from Houston, Texas market. It's going to be jam-packed. I believe we're also going to have an Airbnb guy out there. So we're going to be talking all things from Airbnb to financing, real estate agents probably, and everything in between. So we'll put the link below. Definitely give us a subscribe, a like, thumbs up. Let us know what questions you have. Definitely reach out to Brant, and appreciate it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.